Hello everyone, and welcome back for another episode of 10-Minute Drawing Techniques. This is episode 16 on contrast with your host Mark Chong. If you'd like to see other episodes, please visit 10minutedrawing.blogspot.com and you can watch the other episodes, and you can also post comments and subscribe to the RSS feed. So today's lesson deals with the concept of contrast. Now, you might ask yourself, contrast, it's a really simple concept. Contrast is any time something is different. But contrast can be used to achieve some pretty interesting goals. If I draw, okay, here we have this big old white snowscape. All white, blank, can't see nothing. No contrast. And as a result, our eye doesn't really know where to go. I can just wander across a blank page. But interesting thing is, the moment I put in a little black dot, the eye sees that something is different, something is out of the ordinary and different, and the eye is attracted to the black dot. But the moment I throw in another black dot of equal size and shape, the eye travels between these two black dots. We don't really know which one to look at. And the problem gets even worse when I add more and more and more similar black dots. Our eye doesn't know which one to travel to. And that's because they're all the same shape and size. There's no contrast. The eye is not attracted to one thing or the other. Now, the important thing about what we can use contrast for is that when you're trying to draw a whole crowd of people, and there's all kinds of things going on, when you're drawing, you can't treat it just like taking a photograph. It's very easy to take a bad photograph. Take one that's badly composed, tons of people, too much to look at, nothing interesting to see, no contrast, boring photograph. And it's possible that when you're trying to draw a lot of things at once, that there's no contrast anywhere, we don't know what to look at. It's like drawing a bad photograph. You just want to try avoiding that. So the thing about contrast, as I said, something looks different, something looks out of the ordinary. The moment I put down another dot of similar size right next to this one, well, look at that. The distances are more or less the same except for here. So again, the eye is attracted to this one spot because something is different. One of these things is not like the others. One of these things just doesn't belong. And you tell me which thing is not like the others by the time I finish my song. Just like that. So even if I make this one a little bit bigger, it's contrast. Contrast can come in so many different forms. It comes in size, it comes in terms of distance. The moment I turn this dot, excuse if anyone's colorblind, sorry. The moment I turn one red, it looks different. I've generated contrast. Something has changed. There's super boring rectangle, no contrast. It's the same all around. But if I go and I make one side, narrower, I don't know about you guys, but my eye tends to be attracted to the smaller end of things. Kind of funny. Here's another example for contrast. And by the way, it almost looks as if this side of the rectangle is going away from us. So when you try to draw things in perspective, this no longer looks as flat as the original shape. This looks flat, but this has a bit of a dynamic to it. And by dynamic, I mean that your eye moves. It attracts your eye to something. This one is very static. Your eye doesn't know where to go. There's no sense of movement. Now, whenever you set up one side to be smaller than the other, if you set up one side to be colored, one is red and the other one is green, you set up one side to be lighter or darker, you've got a relationship, a contrast relationship. So if you want, you can set up in an image a whole series of contrast relationships. Let me just clear the page. Oops, hang on. Darn it. You can set up a whole series of contrast relationships. So I can set up one dot. That dot's slightly larger. This one's even bigger. This one's even bigger. Our eye is attracted to one, then the next, then the next, and the next. So this is how we lead the eye through a composition. We set up a series of contrasting relationships. But the problem is if you have this dot's big, this dot's small, that one's small, this one's big, let's make this dot big again, that one's small, and you know, it's just chaos. We haven't, it doesn't make sense. Like your mind tries to find patterns, but if you make everything all different, the thing is that there's contrasting relationships. This one's bigger than this one's bigger than that one's smaller than this one. But the problem is that the contrasting relationships don't point to a common goal. They don't point in the same direction. And if I repeated this pattern, through the whole page, how do I do that? Here we are. Copy? Yeah, okay, so now do I paste? There we go. So if I repeat this pattern everywhere, the result is total chaos. Mind, will just go into a seizure trying to find a pattern through this. And yet you can probably still see a heart pattern through this. All right, this just speaks volumes about how the mind strives to find, patterns. It tries to find something out of nothing. So when you draw this, your contrasting relationships, if you get it so that they all point to a common goal, or they, if I get small, large, larger, small, large, larger, now I've got, multiple contrasting relationships, all pointing to a common goal, and our eye is attracted to one place. So when you have that, when you manage to get this kind of thing set up, you achieve unity. Unity, you've managed to make all of these things work together. Your contrasting relationships work together. And this can be used in so many places. You can use it in clothing design. If you're trying to lead the eye to a particular part of the person's body, you want to make if a person has a really nice face and you want to, attract the eye to the face, you can set up contrasting relationships in the clothes, the way the clothing is cut, the shape of the cut, the colors, that kind of thing, to attract your vision to the person's face. If the person has, really nice hips or really nice legs, then same thing. You can make everything on the person black, and give the person white pants. Boom, eyes go right to the light spot. So this is what you should try to do, is you try to set up a contrasting relationship. If you're trying to generate interest on something, you don't necessarily try to draw the most beautiful face in the world, or the most beautiful this, the most beautiful that. You do that by getting good composition by setting up all your contrasting relationships so that they point to something. And that tells us what we should be interested in. We attract the eye to it, and so everything in your picture, in a strong composition, everything in your picture leads you to the thing that you want to explain. So when you paint, or when you draw a big composition, a crowd of people, or that kind of thing, the thing is that you don't try to draw the crowd so that they're all the same. Don't try to draw them so they're all different. You try to draw patches of the crowd that are similar, and those patches all direct your attention to something that is interesting. So the thing is that in a picture, you don't try to make everything interesting at once. You figure out what is it you're trying to tell people, and then attract their attention to that. And just like I said, just like I said earlier on, your eye can't be everywhere at once. You can't soak up all the information at once. There might be a lot of stuff going on in the picture. So you set up your contrasting relationship to lead the eye so that the eye can take everything in the sequence that you decide on. Anyway, we're out of time. Stay tuned for the next episode.